Welcome to Still Point Osteopaths. My name is Pili Munoz. I'm an osteopath, and today I'm just going to talk a little bit about your newborn having its first osteopathic consultation. And I'm well aware, both because of my own experiences, but with lots of parents coming to the clinic, that first outing and those consultations that you can have with your GPs and what have you can be quite daunting just to get out of the house. And it's not just with your firstborn, it's also if you have a toddler as well as another baby. It's a whole new set of things to juggle. Coming to Still Point Osteopaths is easy. We have some car parks right out the back of the building, and so you can pull up and walk straight into the clinic with your children. And if there isn't a car park there are some very close public car parks that you can use to come to the clinic. All of our staff, as well as all of our osteopaths, are very used to dealing with newborns and families as a unit coming into the clinic, so we're comfortable with crying and lots of noise, and we know how to take care of you well. So once you come into the clinic and you have your first consultation, it's really well worth bringing a few things. Your Plunkett book is really good, because that gives us some information about your baby's height and weight and general health. And it's also useful if you can bring your discharge notes. So mum will have some discharge notes from the labour, and that's really useful as well. So what you'll find when you come in for your consultation is that there will be a lengthy history taking, probably the most lengthy one that you've had to do to date. And so we will cover lots of different areas. Your pregnancy, quite a lot of detail about your pregnancy, a lot of detail about your labour, and quite a bit about what happened post-birth process and what's been happening since then, from how many times your baby is having a bowel motion to how often they're breastfeeding. So there is a lot of information that we ask you so that we can put that information together with a physical exam and work out whether osteopathy is the right process for you and your baby. So what to expect once we've done a history is that generally we'll examine your baby or your toddler, depending on the age. Now, if we're looking at a baby who's a few months old, we'll probably pop them on the floor just so that we can start to see what sort of things they're doing as far as their milestones. This is my monkey baby. And we'll have them on the floor and be checking for things like whether or not they can lift their head, how they're using their arms and their hands, and how they're kicking their feet, whether things are sort of equal or not. So we're looking at the mechanics of their body, whether they're twisting their head both ways. They might already be crawling, so we'll assess the crawling. If they're already walking, we'll watch them walk, and you might be able to help us with some of those movements depending on who's with you. And once we go through that sort of observation stage, we then bring the baby up and pop them on the table. And in this particular position, we usually have a pillow, so they're quite comfortable. We go through a process of examining their joints, right from their feet, their knees, their hips, and their back and their arms and head area. So we'll look at all the different ranges of movement. So expect us to move your baby's body very gently, but assessing the mechanics of how things are working. And then at that point, as the osteopath, we tend to go through a process where we look at the smaller movements within the body. And this might mean that we put our hands potentially underneath their bottom area, or it might be around their head area, or another area of their body, so that we can assess more the internal movements. Once we've done that examination process, then usually the osteopath will take a moment to discuss with you their findings and potentially, if there's any treatment required, what the management plan for that would be. So at that time, if there's still sufficient time, then the osteopath, and if you've agreed, will go through a treatment process with your baby. And hopefully the whole experience will be enjoyable. There are times when babies are crying a lot. Often they're being brought in because they cry a lot. So we're well used to working with mums and bubs and dads and bubs around, getting them as comfortable as we can And this might mean that we do this process while you're breastfeeding, or it might mean that we do it while they're sitting, or it means that we have a whole heap of toys sitting up here to entertain your baby during the process. So if you want any more information, you can go and have a look at our website and learn a little bit about what osteopaths can do for your babies and toddlers.